So, the last event for the day is exciting. Now, the last event for the day is going to be exciting. And so we have 6 vendors who have business architecture tools. You've seen them all out there in the hallway. And here's a chance to learn a little bit more about them. So we're going to turn the camera, the thing off so it doesn't blind them, but they're roughly going to, not even roughly, if they can read, they're going to sit in this order. I'm going to start with some questions. We'll take a few questions from the audience. And I'll finish with a few more. So have a seat and let me. I can kill this thing. You can kill that thing. And I say stop share. Okay. Cool. We don't have everyone in the. That's right. Well, while we're adjusting the camera, I'm going to start anyhow. And what I'm going to do is ask each of you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your product, what your common use cases are. And I'm going to try to make sure everyone gets a fair chance to speak. So try to keep it to 3 minutes or less. And we're going to start over here with Ardoq and go down the row. So Gordon, tell us about Ardoq and.
Very nice. Thank you. Yeah, that does work. All right. Gordon Cooper here. I'm representing Ardoq. I live in Texas, but our US office is based in New York and we're out of Oslo, Norway. Ardoq was conceived. Thank you very much. That's right. So Ardoq was conceived as a cloud native graph database backend enterprise architecture tool. Our concept is that what we wanted to do is take all the good work that the architects are doing and translate that into a business application. So people that don't speak architecture can actually utilize that information to make valuable decisions. So what that means is we're mapping all the things, all the components of the enterprises, that we're giving layers or dimensions so that you can layer these things on and give full context. But at the same time, it's not so complicated that business people can't understand it. So for instance, if you're looking at organizational change management, you're able to help identify needs through health scores or through heat maps. And then you're able to do the high level architecture decision points, then do the detailed architecture and follow it all the way through requirements management. We carry most of the bundled standard use cases, APM, ALM, all of the other things, but the flexibility is in the meta model because we're able to actually add components or elements of the enterprise very simply and very easily. So that's under 3 minutes.
That's great. That's great. Thanks very much. And next, Terry Roach came all the way from Sydney, Australia to be with us here. So thanks for the travel and tell us about capsifi.
Thanks, Mike. So capsifi, Australian-based software company. We've been around for coming up on 10 years now. We are a true-blooded business architecture platform. That's where we came from. Our heritage is really aligned to the guild and the approach to business architecture, capability-based and value streams being the core of everything. Our positioning is really, we try to turn the business operating model and everything about it into an enduring asset. Right? When we ask people for the first time in meeting them, we ask them, where do you keep all your operating model knowledge today? And for the most part, people don't think of their operating model or their business model as something tangible and an asset for the business. And in fact, it's probably the most important strategic asset. No worries. So that's the point, something enduring, incrementally evolving. And then the third point is accessible, making architecture accessible to stakeholders outside of IT. That's been a huge focus of ours. Our canvases are all intended to be very, very interactive, engaging, and things that you could quite easily put in front of your business stakeholders and your project teams and have them perfectly able to consume the content. And I think that really is perhaps one of the key drivers for us as architects, is we sometimes get lost up in the technicality of what we're doing. It's really all about making it consumable and meaningful to the stakeholders we support.
Okay, great. Next, we have Ryan Trollip from Decision Management, I guess, Solutions.
Management Solution.
And from Virginia, so you're in your backyard, I guess.
Yeah. Well, welcome all. We're sort of the black sheep on the panel here, which is not unusual for me, but it's we actually are not a tools vendor, and we make tools that align with enterprise architecture. But we're primarily a consulting company, so we jump in the trenches with organizations to help them do digital transformation in general. And we're very specialized on decisions. Right? I hear a lot of folks in presentations and talks talking about people, process, technology all the time, again and again and again. Well, I believe that's wrong. It's not about people, process, and technology. It's about people, decisions, process, and technology. For example, if we help people decide whether to pay a claim, and then we execute the process to pay the claim, right? It's the decision about paying a claim. Should we pay it? Is this person eligible? Is there fraud involved? So those decisions need to also be modeled, and those are decisions that are core to the enterprise. So we focus on how that plugs into your business architecture. How do we improve those decisions? How do we automate those? How do we model those so that they're visible to the organizations? And we make tooling for our consultants that customers have now started to license as well, around how do we model out decisions in our organization and automate them.
Okay, thank you. Next, Rick Nickerson from Planview. I don't actually know where you live, Rick, so.
Austin, Texas. So Planview has a platform offering that has multiple capabilities. The EA business architecture component of that is the old True product that's been modified and integrated into the platform of several different components that make up a transformation platform. We have ideation, for the front end for EA to actually associate, the continuous learning of how an organization needs to evolve. We have portfolio management, so we're tied into project management at the depths of that, capacity planning of work and resource utilization. We also have Agile Place, which is our lean and agile framework that runs and ties into Jira version 1 and different products like that. So we actually have the full continuum that keeps the architecture up to date. As people finish work, it's updating the architecture. So you can have that ever evolving, continuous connected work in a connected enterprise. We've been around for a long time, about 30 years. So Metis, for those that didn't know True, Metis before that Computas, that's where we come from.
Okay. And then Chris Armstrong with Sparx Systems North America, direct to us from Wisconsin. So he is Midwest nice. Be nice.
Sunny Wisconsin. Thanks, Mike. So yeah, Chris Armstrong with Sparx Systems. We've got a modeling platform, including a number of different components. Sparx Enterprise Architect, which we anecdotally suggest is the world's most popular modeling tool, as we are approaching 1 million licenses sold since we've been in business about 20 plus years ago. We've been long sponsors of the Object Management Group, as we are today. So pretty much every 3 and 4 letter acronym you can imagine that the OMGs come up with, we have got a modeling solution for that. We focus significantly on business and enterprise architecture, although we also do work in defense, aerospace, systems engineering, and then of course, the daily bread stuff like requirements management, business analysis, process management. And I think a big part of our mission is to, it's less about the tool and it's more about the practice. I don't know about you guys, I've used a lot of different tools, including some of my partners up here. And the one thing I can tell you for sure, if you haven't dipped your toes into it, is that all tools are great and they all suck at the same time. Which means there are, wonderful capabilities that a particular tool has, and then you look over your shoulder and you're like, why the heck did they do it like that? So the search for a perfect tool is a elusive, irrelevant battle, in my opinion. Not to say that, whatever tool you pick isn't going to make a difference, but it's more about trying to figure out what you're going to do with the tool and partnering with an organization that can help you figure that out, because a tool is a means to an end. It's not the end itself. And I think the notion of, although we might all make a lot of money off of this, but we often see people blaming the tool for the lack of success, which then causes us to go out and one of our competitors to get brought in, and that seems to be a circle. So like I said, it might work out well for us, but it's more about, again, trying to maintain, a commitment to the overall practice of, business and enterprise architecture. I think, again, the challenge we see is less about the tooling, less about the meta model, but more about the acceptance of the practice within the organization and its, sustainability. So you were talking about, capturing organizational, operational knowledge, as a part of that. How do you sustain that? Because the toughest part about using the tool is not the tool, in my opinion. I mean, you'll have to learn how to use the menu system and the, right mouse click, and maybe got to learn about, UML or BPMN or BizBock or whatever, but keeping the content up to date and current and relevant, that is the toughest part. And so again, it's really an organizational change voyage to try to, how do you turn the way of working so that people are using this ecosystem on a regular basis? And one advice, I can suggest for you guys to consider is, particularly in conferences like this, where we're obviously focused on the profession and the body of knowledge and all that, is we need to be careful about exposing implementation details about our profession to the people we work with, because they do not care at all. And one of the things is that even calling what we do business and enterprise architecture, I think, is not helpful, because most people don't know what it is. A lot of people have had poor experiences with it, so they are soured on it. So I had a really interesting experience with one government agency where they were really introspective, and they said, we don't call it enterprise architecture anymore. We call it enterprise decision support, because that's what our outcome is, not how we do it.
Okay, so a fool with a tool is still a fool. And the last speaker, Vernon Smith, I don't think any of you have heard of his tool before, but it's UMT 360.
That it is.
From North Carolina.
I don't know if it's good to be introduced just after the word fool, so thank you for that, Mike. But I know that it does suck to go last, because I want to say some of what you said, some of what you said, some of what you said, some of what you said. So I can make this really short. Agree with everything these guys have been saying. It's not just about the tool, it's about how you use the tool. It's all about the partnership. It's all about the relationship. Anywho, so UMT 360 is a company that acquired the company that I ran before, called Fios Insight. Some of you know us as that name over. We've been coming here for about 5 years. And if we were still Fios Insight, I'd have been halfway down this list, which would have been better, because now we're at the end. So UMT 360, in their background, are all about portfolio management, and they're the execution side of strategy to execution. They acquired us so they could get the other half of that equation and put it all together. So we're relatively new at the whole picture, but making some good inroads now. Traditionally, our tooling has been, it actually took a slightly different start point to the rest of these guys. We started in the information and data domain. We were all about data management, data rules, business rules, MDM, all that sort of stuff. And then sort of growing up into the information concepts mapping and taxonomy mapping. And then sort of took a left turn into business architecture about a dozen years ago, and have been slowly building up that area ever since. It's now the primary focus of our tool. The business domain is by far the biggest, but we are full feature. We go right across the solution domain. We have TOGAF implementation. We are still strong in the information and data domain. And it's really all about getting people to see that holistic picture, being able to start from any part or pivot from any part of your architecture and see the rest of it, see it always in context.
Great, thanks. So I want to try to cover a lot of material if possible. So I'm going to ask a bunch of questions to start. I'm going to ask 2 of the panelists to answer them instead of all 6 answering every question. So hopefully that will be more interesting and exciting. If any of you feel the absolute need to interject something after the other speaker, go ahead. And then we'll open it up to some questions from the floor. So I'm going to start with question. We heard in this in the forum here, the summit, we heard about strategy to execution, right? And that's the goal of enterprise architecture or business architecture in a lot of places. So let's start with you, Rick. And what does PlanView do to help companies and your clients achieve the strategy to execution nirvana?
Yeah, through the platform capabilities, that's the key, is that we start with the questions of, what is it you're trying to achieve? And then we work from there. Ideation is a lot of people want to do that and understand, where do we want to go? Some people, most of the customers I work with, a lot of times don't have a clue. When it comes to the people we're working with, because they're disconnected from the innovation strategy office or, whoever's writing the business plan. So we want to make sure that we can bring those. Everybody hear me? I want to just make sure, because I can, there we go. There we go. It'd be a singer, right? So the main thing is understanding what their use cases are and trying to drive from there, and then iteratively build upon those use cases. Our implementation strategies, a fast track 3-month engagement, trying to get in to know them, us to know them, teach them how to operate the tool, but it's really about to get the insights out once we get the data collected, and then integrate with those source solutions that are out there that have the real data. How do you keep it evergreen? There's only 3 integrations. People and the process and technology all have to be integrated together to make this happen. But that's a long journey. There's not a one and done. We're never done. But I say it's a 3 to 5 year journey to get to optimization, where you can actually get into this continuous planning that Agile really wants to be on, to actually have solutions that are happening that way. So through my consulting practice and the tool together, that's how we deliver and help them out.
Okay, great. Now, chatted with you a lot about that, Terry. So what's the capsifi approach to that?
Well, if you think of that big glaring gulf, that gap between, somebody has an idea and then we've got to get it executed. That big space that fits in between, that's exactly where we play as business architects. It's defining what the change should be and prioritizing and helping to feed the backlog of the people that are executing the change. So I think, and the way that we do that is through these exercises called transformation initiatives, right? Now, we have this hypothesis that seems to be bearing out that pretty much there's a one-to-one relationship between a transformation initiative and the value stream that's being affected by that. And so that basically means that if you're a business architect and you can find the guy that's got that imperative and the budget for some major transformation, you can go and quite quickly figure out what value stream he's transforming. And what you'll find is if you show up in the office and you'll look at the artifacts that the project teams are all working with, they all are roadmaps. That's what they start with. They look at time and budget, but they've got nothing to tell them about, well, what part of the business are we actually affecting here? And how are we doing that? And how are we deciding what's the important things to change? And if we walk in with our value streams, you've got this amazing, and particularly if they're populated with an industry model from the guild, and you've got it ready to go. If you haven't got your own value streams prepared, you already have this amazing canvas that everybody can huddle around and put their post-it notes on and find the pain points and find the ideas and feed it through. And that's exactly how we approach it. We always talk about value stream first, map your value stream, find the owners of or the transformation initiatives acting on them, and you immediately are on a winner to propose to demonstrating the value that we can provide. So that's pretty much our.
Great. So everywhere in the news these days is artificial intelligence. AI this, AI that, chat, GPT, whatever. Gordon, What does Ardoq, what's its view about artificial intelligence? Have you got that incorporated somehow in your tool to help architects do their job better? Or do you also, or instead approach helping people who are trying to do artificial intelligence through some of the features of your product?
Well, actually, we are planning to replace everyone with artificial intelligence.
Okay, good.
That is. Thank you. See, it knew I was saying that, so it cut me off.
Chat boxes.
Yeah,
you
that's
off.
right. So, actually, at the moment, we're exploring ways to incorporate artificial intelligence into helping make decisions. Also to find out what architects need to do in order to perform their job. We want to incorporate this same capability in order to help do the analytics. So one of the problems that you have right now is we have a lot of data. We don't have any way to do the predictive analytics. So we can do the analytics based on what we know. Ardoq, our whole goal is to provide you intelligence. Now, whether you call it artificial intelligence or whether it's just intelligence via context on your enterprise, our goal is to layer enough parts and pieces of the enterprise together so that you can make a fully contextualized decision. Whether you incorporate predictive analytics, run simulations, that type of thing, we would probably source that out because running simulation engines is not our bailiwick. But our goal is to make sure you make the best decision. I'll go back to something that you said a minute ago about it's people, decision, processes, and technology. We should be in the business of helping you understand what the best decision to make is. And EAs don't need to be the ones making the decision. We need to give you the information so that you can make a decision as a business leader, meaning we have to make it understandable to you so that you can do that with the most benefit and the least amount of cost or risk. That's how we see it.
Okay, great. Well, you mentioned decision. So Ryan, what's your take on how to help people trying to do AI?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of hype around AI these days, but there is actual real innovation that's come out over the last few years. Probably much more hype than than application at this point. And in fact, that's generally how we get engaged. And a lot of the time, customers come to us and say, we've spent a huge amount of money on machine learning in our organization, but we're not seeing any results, right? And we see that really often. The CIO comes in or CTO and just budgets a huge amount, hires a big team, says, have at it, collect as much data as possible. And they spend years piling up data, right, into this massive, I'm sure every one of you has seen that at some point, right? But we say that's wrong. That's the wrong way to approach it, right? We flip that on its head and say, let's start with the decision first, right? What are we trying to improve? Like going back to that, I don't know, let's say we're trying to support a medical decision or what formulary for medicine that you should have, or a claims decision, or any decision that you make on a day-to-day basis within that company. Which decisions are the most important that we need to improve? And you guys talked about capability maps and prioritization. That's obviously a hot topic, right? How do we decide what to prioritize? We look at the capabilities, we look at each individual metric within that capability. So marketing department, what's important for the marketing capability is to improve maybe cross-sell, upsell. Well, how much are we doing right now, and how much do we want to target, and what decisions fall under that metric, right? Are we putting the right products forward in that decision for the right personas? And then we tie that back to the actual machine learning that's needed to take that guess, right? And not everything's a guess. Sometimes it's expert systems, business rules was mentioned, and other things that we use to make that decision. But we are sort of walking down that path to define those decisions in order to leverage machine learning well within our customers.
Okay. Chris, you mentioned that it's not about the tool so much as it about how you use it. So what are some of the big challenges that your customers have with business architecture, and how does your product help them overcome those challenges, or your approach?
Right. Well, as much as I'd like to say, our product is the best product in the world, and it turns normal people into brilliant business architects and everybody takes them seriously. That would be a little bit over the top. Again, when I think about it, I'm sure there's always ways to make the tool more capable, more user friendly, all that kind of stuff. But the biggest resistance, I think, is a lot of people that we're trying to work with in executive and strategic decision making. They've never heard of business and enterprise architecture before, and it's like this uphill battle. And I think, we're still pretty early in our profession. Enterprise architecture started maybe 40, 50 years ago at a stretch. And if you talk to, C-level executives about things you need to do to successfully run your business, things like finance, accounting, planning, all, purchasing, the things you get in an MBA class, how many of them heard that, business and enterprise architecture are an essential part of running your business? I mean, does anybody wake up one day and go, I really don't like accounting. The accountants are expensive. They talk about this technical stuff. We got to spend all this money on software. So it's a part of doing business. So I think it's the acceptance of the profession, which really gets to the sustainability. That all being said, I think one of the keys that we found is you thinking about business and enterprise architecture. I think you were saying it, Vernon, given that holistic end-to-end view and trying to exploit, because this is certainly a big part of the architect mindset, is reuse, which I claim is somewhat related to we're lazy, right? But is there a way that I can exploit a trusted or semi-trusted data source that has good, possibly decent data in it? An APM tool, an accounting tool, and can I pull that data in and then triangulate it with other perspectives, using enterprise architecture and business architecture best practices to provide unique perspectives that have never been given before. And I think if you can do that, namely, try to figure out a way that you don't have to be the one to keep all the data current, because that is a very, very, very tough thing. It happens to be one of the places where I think AI and machine learning might help out. So I think that's about all I got to say about that.
Okay. Now we've seen your tool in slideware a little bit, Vernon, but and it looked very nice. But yeah, what are some of the big challenges that you're helping customers face?
I would say the biggest one is getting over the massive price point of becoming a guild member.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Couldn't
the
resist
more
it,
you
Bill, sorry.
like that, the more we like it. So
no, I mean, the biggest challenge that we see is, I've got to echo Chris there. It's why should they care? Why is it important to them? And as soon as we take the sort of architecture lens off things and we start, I mean, this is something that Wendy advised me a number of years ago and that we've always tried to build into the tool, is think about socializing architecture beyond architects, as far beyond it as you can go. So it's turning it into meaningful decision-making information. Problem there is trying to get people to decide what it is they actually want to see. How do you get the foot in the door? How do you put something interesting in front of them? Some clients that we're working with now are coming up with great ideas, ways of doing that. They don't go the traditional sort of, we're going to start with capability, then we're going to go value stream. That's what they're doing underneath. That's what's getting them to where they want to go. But they'll pick something that represents a way their business want to see it and that resonates with them. Something that ideally has come from the business leaders. And we're hearing in the last presentation about the OKRs, and the OKRs being something that everybody's bought into. And I think she actually said people are measured by and get paid by, ultimately. They get their bonuses by, whatever it is. So tying the architecture back to that is key. Tying back to something that resonates with the folks. They don't care about pretty pictures, which is a real shame because we've invested so much in looking pretty.
okay, great. So start thinking of some questions. We're going to do one more question with the panel and then go to the audience. So, so the question is, what do why are we doing business architecture? What's the business trying to achieve? And one of the things that we hear about these days is, digital transformation, digital initiatives, and things like that. So, Ryan, what do you see in terms of how you're helping your customers in digital initiatives?
Yeah, I think one of the sort of primary goals is to get to efficient transformation. I think the comment on, is this an essential function of the business, like an accounting department and all that? I mean, I obviously believe it is a essential function, business architecture and enterprise architecture, because you have to evolve. Otherwise, you're going to get killed by the competition. Ask Blockbuster, or, plenty of these companies that just didn't evolve over time, right? You got to change, you got to keep up. And, what we try to do is leverage standards, and why we're, originally submitted to some of the standards on OMG and so forth, is to help to move that forward in the industry and have practitioners learn and get better at how they approach digital transformation. I obviously bang on about decisions all the time, right? Because I've decided to focus on that area because I think that's the area of the most impact within an organization these days. But obviously, processes, capability mapping, value streams, all of that stuff, getting that elevated and visual helps to get to that efficient level of transformation in an organization, rather than just which executive shouts the loudest about their pet project gets it prioritized, which is what happens a lot of time.
Rick, you feel brave enough to take on that digital initiatives?
Yeah, so digital transformation process, right? So how many of you have been through currently have an SDLC, or you're using Agile framework or anything like that? Or have a standardization on how you actually process the information that is required for the investment decision? Higher with the hands. How many? All right, not very many, right? 200 people. Yeah, thumbs up over there, Ruth. How many? All right, hands up. So I bring that up because that's the key here, is that, the decision needs information, right? And if we don't have a standard way of doing a process to collect the information to answer the questions, the decision needs to be made. It's hard to get to a consensus of what needs to be worked on. And I see that as the failure of most projects, right? And if we want to get to digital transformation and be agile, it can't be the developer deciding for us what we're going to actually have built, right? It has to be a vision from a strategy. And the overall goal, KPIs, performance, is probably the most important, but the least used. We all are supposed to be driving from performance and trying to fill a gap. What are we filling in if we don't have a baseline measure? That's another piece that most people lack. I come from the Fed in the past. I was Navy for 22 years and worked in DHS, Homeland Security, for 5 years. So performance architecture from the FIAF, right? Nobody does it. It's hard, right? Because nobody wants to be held accountable. And that's what we have to work on, is being held accountable for what we're working on and responsible for. And our tools only support the decision process. That's our consulting, the process that we actually help embed to have the evergreening process to keep the information live and running forever. So we can have continuous plan, which is what everybody wants in safe and agile. Then we can be there. But we have to get past the firefighting to solution to enterprise planning to optimization. And that's a 3 to 5 year journey, as I said. So we'll get there, but we have to work and have the standards. That's one reason to have the business architecture, a standard way of collecting information that we don't have to train somebody new, because if we have our proprietary methodology in our business and we go from, and I've worked with like 200 companies, nobody has it the same. So that's not good, right? So how do we get that? So we can hire the right people, we can get there faster. We have to work less hard. If we're all doing the same way, we have to think up new creative processes.
Okay, great. Bill, you got the microphone? Or Wendy. Oh, okay. So we're going to take some questions from the audience, just a ground rule. Try to ask generic questions. If you have a question like, how do I do such and such with PlanView? Save it for the hall. All of these vendors are out there in the hall. You can ask them those specific questions, rather not do that on the panel. So I hope that didn't squash your question. And go ahead.
Okay, thanks for the great presentation of your products, and thanks for those who came from far countries in order to present their products today. So before the summit, I only knew 2 of these 6 products. So I had the opportunity yesterday and today to deal and to talk with many of you, and I've asked for tutorials, for recorded training in order to develop my skills as a practitioner in business architecture and to serve and to satisfy the need of the organization I am working for. But what should know that the organization I'm working for today are of different level of maturity. So today I am happy to see that there are 6 products that are performing well and can respond to my to my customers' needs and expectations. But I am on the same time I'm a bit lost between the products. So I am wondering if there is a comparative analysis that has been done in order to make things easier for us, advisor in business architecture, in order to identify the right tool between all the tools. I know that's maybe a whole analysis or whole comparative analysis cannot exist, but at least because I've noticed that there are common features between the 6 products, but we know that each product has its strengths and weaknesses or its limits, and each product distinguishes by its own features with other products. So, is there a way to compare, let's say, these products in order to identify the right tool at the right moment?
Wow. Just buy one of each, I think.
That's what everybody else does.
Yeah, I think it's fair to let each one of you take a stab at, the best use case or whatever the right purpose for your tool is. And this time we'll start at that end with Vernon and work our way back.
So am I answering what's the best use case, or am I answering is there a way of comparing us? Because that one's real quick. No.
Yeah, not yet, but right
Not
after
yet,
this
yeah.
question, there
Yeah,
will be.
The RFI process would be good. I hate to say it depends, but it depends on what you're trying to achieve. We all have our strengths. It's not just about doing business architecture. That's too broad. What do you want to do? You need to come to the tool vendors and say, I have this need, I have this problem I'm trying to solve for a client, and then we will each articulate the way that we can do that. That's the best I can say to you.
Okay.
Well, certainly shamelessly promote the business tool evaluator, right? That you can get from the guild, that at least has a baseline set of perspectives and questions. But that is unfortunately something you're, to do for yourself, although you might send it to, a tool vendor like ourselves and start an RFI process. I think not to diminish the wonderful things we all have to offer, but you could almost, we do have specialization and stuff like that, but you could take the dartboard approach. Who do you like better? The color of their corporate logo, flip a coin. I'll admit it's a pretty tough decision. If I had to make one, it would be a challenge. Obviously I've got a personal preference based on history, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right choice. So, hopefully you can find out information on all of our websites, talk to customers. There's also, of course, market research. Take that with a little grain of salt sometimes. So probably didn't help you too much there, Morad, but.
Yeah, I think it really goes into what is your focus, right? And where are you the most mature at the time that you're looking? And that would drive your requirements to whatever criteria you've set up. And look at the platform that best suits you at that time. I've recommended other tools that are better suited for that point in time. And then you grow into the more complex capabilities that other platforms have. So that's the way I would suggest to move forward.
Yeah, it's a good question because it's a complicated thing to work out if you've ever been in a selection process before. And when we do transformation, like I have one going on right now with a large insurance company, we get asked to help them with those evaluations quite often. And, everybody creates this massive matrix and all these like features and then they start, working through it. but largely at the end of the day, they make a decision on which one feels right for the thing they're trying to do. But, you know, you've got to go through the process, like you got to sit and, you know, speak to the vendors initially on sort of what you're trying to do. Obviously, we're quite different. And there's some overlapping between the tool sets, but like we go very deep in terms of decisions, right? That's our thing. And each vendor is going to have the differentiators, but there's a fixed process that you can sort of go through to select tools, and it takes time. And I encourage you to get them to do demos and get them to do little POCs and show you stuff in your context, right? So you can get a good feel for those tools, right?
Yeah, thank you. If you're interested, I'd be very happy to share with you our unbiased definitive report on what the best. But no, seriously. So I think it's really where everybody's put their priorities, and I think we put our priority on getting value from and also getting value quickly from the tool. So the ability to very rapidly get up to speed and start producing, you know, insightful outputs for your stakeholders is key to us. Secondly, making sure that you are never challenged by the tool getting in the way of your job. Right? So we're putting a lot of effort into guidance material. We've built into the product a digital adoption platform now that gives you guidance on and easy access to in product help wherever you need it. And then thirdly, our licensing model includes access to a product coach. So you've always got an expert at your disposal to help you. So those are the sorts of things we're doing to try and make sure that the product it comes with the whole package of making sure that you're successful with it.
So I'll try to put this in the context of how enterprise architects do their job every day, or what we recommend. I mean, we're basically going to tell you to eat your own dog food. So you need to evaluate according to an app rationalization approach and say, what are the things that we're trying to bring under management? What are the processes we're trying to integrate with? Who are the decision makers who need to consume the data? What is that data? So you go through this exercise to try to figure out which strengths of the tools are going to play to that. Like, how many assets do you need to bring under management? Like, what type of assets are there? Is there flexibility to scale? Can you add new concepts that you couldn't add before? Is it a rigid meta model? Is that what you need? Do you need incorporated standards, or do you need to provide business value as opposed to delivering Archimate? So that would be my recommendation to you.
So great answers, all of you too, to a hard question. I'll make a couple of comments. All of these gentlemen and a couple more are on the Business Architecture Guild's website under vendors, and there's a link to all of their companies. There is a business architecture tool evaluator tool that the Guild provides, which evaluates how well they support the BizBoc. But the real question is, how well does it support your business? And at the risk of being a heretic here, I will say that the choice of a tool is rarely a determining factor in the success of your architecture program. So all of these gentlemen have great tools, and probably any one of them would help you. Some might help you more than others, but that's not going to be the most important decision you make. Sorry, guys. Any other questions from the audience?
I've got one. I've got one from the online.
Yay.
This question is around user interfaces. And do any of you have plans to update user interfaces to be more user friendly?
Oh, boy, anyone who wants to answer that one can.
I'll step right into that. So basically what we have done is we have developed interfaces that are intended for business users. So they don't have to go into the core platform in order to get information that's relevant to them. So it's a tool that we call Discover. It was born from the need to communicate outside of IT, because again, we're focused on providing IT deliverables to people who are not in IT or architecture. So Discover is a way of doing that. The same thing we've done with surveys. Surveys get contribution. It's democratized enterprise architecture. because we put the information in the hands of the people who are SMEs or who are owners, and then they contribute back to the repository through a survey form or through, you know, some reduced interface. So it's not complicated, and it shouldn't be complicated, because if it's complicated, people will not use it.
Anyone else?
Absolutely, yes, please. So we have a unique opportunity with our user experience because we've just merged with another company and because we're bringing two fundamentally different tool sets together. We're going to take advantage of this opportunity. We're going to milk the heck out of it. And we're going to take all of these new development resources and user experience experts that are available to me now that weren't available before, and we're going to apply them all to the architecture tool. We have built-in surveys as well. Fantastically useful thing, again, for sort of going beyond the architect, going beyond the IT world, going beyond the business strategy world, going out into the real world. And those are an integral part. We've got a number of customers now that are wanting to sort of do holistic application portfolio management. So they want very lightweight forms, not even a full survey, but just a way of attesting once a year or once every 2 years, whatever it may be, whatever their cycle is, attesting that certain small slices of the repository are still what they will put their name against and sign on the dotted line. So all of those things we're pulling together.
Just real quick, so we have a pretty high fidelity, engineering platform for people that want to build, sophisticated models using all the multiple letter acronyms and, potentially do simulation. We're focusing more on creating a less obtrusive or less sophisticated user experience for the consumers. Not to say that there aren't opportunities for the architects, but hopefully the architects, they'll figure out the right buttons to press. But, I've always thought, anecdotally, there's at least 1 or 2 orders of magnitudes of consumers of architecture content than producers. So as far as big, bang for your buck, we're focusing more on, how do we serve this content up to non-architects, non-modelers, non-engineers, so that they can easily access it. It's, looks good, it's compelling, and they can interact with that to get getting good information out to help drive good decision-making. So that's where our focus has been, is more again on that non-modeler user experience. And then also trying to defer to other solutions to do things like, so for example, and you guys may have similar experiences, we're doing a lot of work with ServiceNow. Not sure, I'm very envious of the success of that platform. But so instead of trying to solve the APM solution and the survey solution, we're like, well, let's just have ServiceNow do that and we'll kind of consume that content. So trying to keep our focus, not trying to make our tool do everything that it could do, trying to draw some good bounds.
And for us, we're actually entering into a modernization effort. We just announced that we're moving to AWS. So we're going to be doing data mesh technologies and things like that. So an opportunity to actually improve our UIs, but we're very persona driven by audiences. So we have ideation, right? Already in our platform. We have portfolios for project managers. We have the EA platform for the more technical architects. We have the agile space for safe and agile and delivery. So we have the UIs. We have an incidental project management tool. So it's very easy to use. You don't have to be a project manager, so you can do your own. So we have a lot of UIs that are going to sit on top of a set of data, right? So everybody should be operating on that same data. So that's really the repository in the end, is that you're changing the things that are in the repository, and work is moving over top of that to change what we said we needed to do in our business model. So we're in that process right now. We're still defining what it is. So if you want to come on board, you can help generate the requirements for the personas.
Called it.
It's time. Yeah.
So we're lucky enough to be the new kid on the block. So we've, sort of started relatively recently and used to, taken advantage of all the modern platforms that have sort of grown up on the cloud. And so we've obviously built in all of the sort of collaborative features that you would expect from sort of modern web 2.0 or whatever, which should be 3.0, whatever by now. Tools, so you can see stuff moving around as somebody else is moving it and who's doing what, all that sort of stuff. So we, being relatively new, we've been able to start with that.
Yeah, and so I think UX is just such an important topic for for tools like these. We've put a huge amount of focus on it, and we have a whole UX team that have been working on actually our next gen product, which is a whole new redo of the front end and the visualizations and everything else. But two of the things that we're doing, which I think are really helpful in this space, are including authoring tools into the platform so that customers will have the ability to configure their own way in which the pages that are presented, as well as the navigation to get to those pages. So we have page builder and a pathway builder. You can import and create your own infographic or whatever your favorite PowerPoint slide is, and then use that to let people click through to landing pages where you can present, allow them to navigate through your content. So we're looking at really creative ways that not just for the business architects who are doing the modeling, but for all of your stakeholders to be able to have access to the content in an interactive way. What you don't want to be doing is PDFing or printing it out or putting it in a PowerPoint. That just takes away all the value of the tool in the traceability and the alignment that the tool gives you for clicking through. Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's keep with the, oh, we have a question there. Okay.
So I think Vernon kind of answered the part of my question was, how do you gather the need, just maybe at a broader scale, of your customer needs? How do you proactively go after what they need? And then here you kind of answered my second part, which is the kind of the customer support, the product support. Like, what does that support model look like?
So we are very much into co-design and working with our customers on all the designs that we do. We have a product advisory council where our customers are engaged with us in giving us product feedback. We have two, in fact, release streams. One is for customer enhancements, independent of another release stream, which is for our own feature roadmap. And so there's a constant cycle of being able to get customer feedback into the product.
Yeah, most of our customers are large enterprises, and we work very closely with them in a relationship. And we also focus on their sort of work stream. We do a lot of customization for them. They might have a particular team structure or a process they want to follow, so we build that in as well.
And so we have what we call the inner circle, and we have several inner circles that all the different audiences that we support actually are involved. So I think we have like 40 or so of those going on right now. So they have the opportunity to submit their questions. We also use our own products. We use IdeaPlace to actually submit and have campaigns and do pairwise comparison to work up to what features that will come into the next PI. Because we use those as well. So the support model is we have me as a consultant that helps implement and progress your maturity. We also have our support model that our teams that if you have issues or whatever in the regular tiering process, that will make sure that if there's a feature that we really need to have, that it fits into our PI plan process. If you didn't put in the spigot IdeaPlace, then we would take care of that as well.
So I'll answer that question as well. One of the things that we do is we engage with you during the sales process. When you've come to us with a question or a request, and we try to get down to the root cause of what it is you're trying to actually solve. Because what we found is, especially in the EA space, if we don't help you really identify what it is that you're trying to provide to your consumers, then what we wind up doing is talking about features and functions. And you don't buy a tool based on features and functions. Yes, it's handy, it's great, it's easy, it automates some tasks, but really you're buying a tool to add value. So we will work with you up front to make sure that we identify that, and then make sure that the solution that gets implemented is not necessarily customized, but it is tailored to what your needs are and delivers the information to the stakeholders you identified early on. We also maintain a relationship with you with a dedicated customer success manager, as well as professional services and all the things that go with it. But our goal as a company is to make sure that your practice is successful in delivering value, because it's not just about Ardoq. It's about the practice, because I've been doing EA for 30 plus years. So for me, it's helping propagate a really solid enterprise architecture or business architecture practice. Using a tool, absolutely. Yeah, we want you to use our tool, but I want you to be successful. And that's how we're going to help you do it.
Okay, great. Terrence, you got a question?
Yeah. In this strategy execution space, there are a lot of things going on, different domains. I know we're talking about business architecture, but in the spirit of transparency and visibility throughout this strategy execution journey, any observation you guys have, any pitfalls, if we have to potentially deal with multitudes of tools, business architecture tool being one of those, unless one of your tools can cover the entire strategy execution domain, right? But if we do have to deal with different tool sets, some might be in the planning space, some might be in the execution space, some might be in the runtime space. Any insights and observations to create those kind of traceability alignment?
Yeah, that's a good one, Terrence. So the core of what we do is based on what we call an ontology, right? Which is a concept map, knowledge graph. The platform is built on a meta model that's designed in a graph. And the great thing about graph databases is the flexibility and the extension that you can make for them. So it already comes with a map that basically says how you connect capabilities to applications, to processes, to everything else. If some of this stuff lives in another tool, like ServiceNow might have the CMDB with the application catalog, and maybe your projects are in Jira or your processes are in Signavio, we have the ability to, through their RESTful APIs, to extend the knowledge graph into the third-party content. So you can just play the data where it lies. You have this effectively, it's called data virtualization, where if somebody is updating an epic in Jira, our heat maps are being updated with the status of what's in Jira. We're not even copying it over. We're not doing any synchronization or anything. We're just reading the state of those objects. So in this way, what the tool becomes, what business architecture actually becomes, is not trying to be the master of everything, but sort of the aggregator of everything, bringing it all together into the views that give you that holistic decision-making, because that you're able to bring together very, very disparate, fragmented information into one unique single perspective.
Yeah, great stuff. We want that.
What he said.
No, so specifically to answer your question, Terrence, about any sort of insights or learnings, I just wanted to share something that we've been going through fairly recently with a client. We're not in that as advanced a situation as Terry there. We are using RESTful APIs to deal with other systems of record. And the big lesson we got from it is it's all very well saying, for example, we will master business capabilities in our tooling. They will master applications in their legacy tooling. Everybody knows who owns what. Everybody knows how to exchange it. The key is who owns the association between those two things. And that has always been a problem when you're looking at a sort of bi-centered or tri-centered or however many folks there are in the whole situation. It's not where the primary objects live. That's fine. That's easy. It's where do the associations live? Or if you get even more granular, where do the properties of those associations live? Where do the details of the cardinality of the roles, all that sort of thing? And that level of detail almost always gets lost when you first have the discussion. So just bear that bit in mind.
Yeah, it comes down to you need an integration hub for one, right? So to be effective in this space, because you got to feed the beast, as they say, right? All the source systems that are out there, first you have to say it's the source system, because there's lots of systems that have the same type of information in them. So you have to find the source system. And if you have multiple source systems, then you have to normalize that before it ever comes into the repository, because the repository becomes the resident knowledge base that has to have a distinct definition. because otherwise we're just creating another added to the mess. And ownership is the key piece outside of EA and business architecture. So identifying a stewardship model, the governance model to manage the data. That's the hardest thing, especially if anybody that's done the implementations. Getting people, they want governance right away. It doesn't happen because you don't know who's who and who has the data, what system owns it. And then as you work through the project, you actually are trying to figure out to answer the question we're trying to answer first. What's the data I'm trying to get in the first place? That is the first step, right? And as I start to work through it, so it's a journey to get to the point that you can actually do this. That's why I said it's a 3 to 5 years to get to that point that you actually understand, because you don't introduce new stuff because they're constantly adding new stuff. Somebody's buying, nobody's controlled it. There's no governance on buying a new tool. That's why everybody has like 3 to 4 tools doing the same thing. And that's why EA is trying to stop that. Is hey, you don't need it. Is it unique? Probably not. Then to stay on the right ones, but it's ownership and integrations and how we handle that as integration hub. We just acquired TaskTop. So in the agile space, DevOps, flow metrics, making sure you understand the performance of business architecture. That's how we start to understand how stuff flows through an enterprise, is measuring the flow of how transformation is actually working with the flow metrics.
Great. So we're running a little short of time. I want to get a little forward looking in the last 2 questions. So briefly, and I'm going to start with you, Terry. Where do you see business architecture moving and in the future, and how do you think your approach, your tool helps it get there?
Yeah, that's good. So I think one of the spaces that are a little bit untouched, but so important for us as business architects is to keep the eye on value, the concept of value in what we're doing. And especially when you're thinking of transformation, the thread of value right the way through from the very beginning to the end, from strategy to execution. So you can already see that there's so many places that we can introduce value into our practice. We have the concept of value maps, which you can use to define the decomposition of value for stakeholders, customers, and so on. And you can put all of your business strategies and objectives into the value maps. You have the value proposition, which is really very focused on customer and segmentation and driving your offerings. You have the value streams, which is how you get the value delivered. And then at the end, the value realization through value trees and so on. So we're really looking at this, how we can really articulate the value of A, business architecture, but B, the transformations that you're using business architecture to plan for, and very clearly give ROI and hard metrics on where the benefits are going to come from transformation. So I think that putting value into the guild's concepts, it'd be a great contribution.
Chris, you want to take that as well?
Sure. So I think if I look at a couple of segments, or where do you want to focus on, I think is where's the money and where is the motivation to change. And so the money is in portfolios, right? So for most organizations, there's hundreds of millions of dollars that are being invested driving projects to the PPM, the PMO. So there's a great opportunity for alignment there because, for example, like others were saying, we don't want developers making, just strategic decisions about what features products are supposed to have. But, agile software development only gets you so far. And don't get me wrong, but you can only optimize that process so much before you need to go to a higher order optimization, which is why did we even agree to do this project in the first place? So stopping projects that are bad ideas, getting people together to share, experiences, share money and resources. And then the other one I think is in the policy management side of stuff, namely as it relates to regulatory oversight. As things are getting more and more regulated because of the particularly around personal data and credit data, if you can figure out a way to get aligned with the GRC corporate team and basically be able to, say you've got something to help them respond to regulatory audits and reports better, make it more accurate, and then potentially avoid regulatory issues. I think there's a real opportunity there. So again, that's more on the practice side. From a tool side, I think you've probably heard from us in some ways that the tool is not going to be the differentiating factor about your success. But one thing that I've been thinking a lot about, I don't know about you guys, but even though we still do it to this day, it's so hard to break habits, is getting out of point-to-point integrations with other pieces of software. So, hey, we can pull data from ServiceNow, we can pull data from Jira, Azure DevOps, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, isn't it the 21st century? Isn't that what people did like 30 years ago? So getting into more like data streaming, data as a service, kind of doing the next generation pass, like ESB kind of stuff. I think that's one of the great opportunities. And that might be one of the places we can start plugging in some machine learning AI stuff as well.
Okay, great. So I promised each of the speakers that I'd have 6 questions and we'd each get 2. So the final question will go to Vernon and Gordon. And this is, what are the features in your product map that are going to help move business architecture forward?
The whole product map is integrating business architecture with execution. That's why UMT bought our company. The whole idea of it is to move to that sort of next generation of true strategic portfolio management. It's everything to do with writing the cost data and the resource data right back up into the architecture planning and driving the strategy right through to the end of the execution. In doing so, we take business architecture with us on this journey.
Great. And last but not least, Gordon.
So our product map actually is to incorporate more and more of the enterprise. Yes, we are going to enhance the product. We will be incorporating some functions of AI, mainly in tech support or to help you make decisions about what should be the next step in the architecture that you're doing. But more importantly, what we're looking at, and one of the things that I haven't really heard, is we're also going to focus on the people aspect of it. So in other words, how do people affect your enterprise? One of the things that we're working on right now is mapping skills and competencies to roles, to SMEs, to all of the things. What would be the purpose of undertaking an AI initiative when you find out you don't have any competency in AI? So you need to make sure that talent management is hooked into the enterprise architecture so you can actually find out where your deficiencies are in the people aspect. So our goal here is to branch out and make sure that we're covering the entirety of the enterprise. So it really becomes true enterprise architecture and not technical architecture on steroids. Going back to the point that someone down here made on compliance. If you don't do compliance, then you're not really giving an enterprise perspective. If you're not looking at left shift security, you're not building security by design, you're reacting to these things. And our goal is to be proactive. So build all these things into the components, into the patterns, into the reference architectures, so that as you assemble your enterprise, you're going to be compliant, you're going to be secure, and you're going to properly employ the right people.
Okay, well, this is going to be a tough ask, but we don't want to be between the beer and them. So in 30 seconds or less, your last thoughts, advice, whatever, to the crowd. You've got the mic. Let's start with you and head on down.
So I guess my advice is in your journey to become relevant to the organization through business architecture or enterprise architecture, my advice to you is to take a picture of what it is that they're trying to accomplish and give them the information that they need in a digestible format. Don't try to give them complex diagrams. Don't try to spend a lot of time creating these master maps of the enterprise. Give them the piece of information they need to make a decision, because that's all they really need to do. They need to know they need the best information, the most rich information to make the best decision they can for the company.
Great.
I think my advice would be, I see so many people doing business architecture still, and the obvious question comes up: what was your tool? And it's Excel and PowerPoint, and that's so hard as a business architect for you to be as good as you can be when you're dealing with such, static, archaic tools. Yeah. So I would say That's right. So if you could possibly find a vendor, and I'm sure all of us are the same, we will work with you, we'll give you access, we'll allow you to just get going with the tool because it's going to be good for you, it's going to be good for us. And don't delay in trying a tool because a tool is going to really lift your practice up and make you more effective.
So having done a lot of enterprise modernization or transformation over the years with lots of projects, and I think the biggest thing would be to get a win quickly, right? And one of the reasons I obviously focus on decisions is it's an area where you can get a win in a short space of time. If you're looking to improve, going from strategy to execution is maybe not it. It's strategy to results, right? You want to get results and show value and get those tangible results back so that you can build on that success and grow your practice in the organization.
Yeah, and the strategy to execution really is about enterprise resilience, the ability to respond to an emergency or a change or breakdown, whatever it is. So think about where you can provide the best value. Where's the burning bridge? Because if you don't have a burning bridge, you're not going to have people listen to you. And come with value. What is it that they resonate with? The information they need to have when they ask the question. Do you have it? Is there a piece missing? Go quick. Because that burning bridge is going to burn down if you don't get there. And they're going to do it anyway without you. So take the opportunity to be the savior and you'll actually build the credibility.
I'd say, the human factor, it can be pretty lonely out there sometimes being an island or trying to, lead the charge. So, look internally to communities of people, because the large organizations, there's a lot of people that are doing business architecture, but they don't know it because they weren't instructed on it, but they figured out, oh, I got to kind of have some taxonomy to classify this or blah, blah, blah. So look for community within your organizations. And again, it's great, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but this is like the first OMG conference I've been to in quite some time. And just getting back face to face and being a part of this community. There's strength in numbers. We've had a lot of interesting experiences. I bet through all of us, we've been there and done that for just about every scenario amongst us. So, reach out internally to this community and others, and really try to get the most out of those human relationships, because that's what makes the difference, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm closing it out. These are all things that have been said before during this session. I just want to reiterate them. First one, understand what it is you want a tool to do. Don't buy a tool because it looks pretty, even though ours does. Second thing, don't buy a tool, buy a partnership, buy into a partnership with one or all of us. And that's the real value. It's not just a big piece of software. It's our skills, it's our knowledge. We all contribute to the guild. We've all worked as architects for 30, 35, 38, 41 years, however many, 65 years, or whatever. So yeah, be clear on what you want from it. Come talk to us. Let us help you get there. And with that said, I will let you get to the beer.
All right. So,
One thing. You don't have to buy a tool to talk. So LinkedIn, reach out to us. We will actually talk, right? Have questions, brainstorm, powwow. We will have a kumbaya, vendor kumbaya to help you out. And then
Okay.
who do you like the best now?
So, just the last couple points here. All of these gentlemen have invested their time. They've traveled here to be here, to talk to you. Even if you've already gone to their tables, go again. And more importantly, their companies have spent millions and millions of dollars to help business architecture move the community forward. So let's give them all a big hand